The night she jumped in front of the billionaire and took the bullet meant for him, she thought it was a random act of courage. She didn't know it would unlock a secret buried since birth, one that would shake the very foundation of her identity and reveal a truth even the billionaire himself had buried in guilt and silence.
Nina was born into nothing. The narrow alleyways of Ajigunle knew her footsteps well, barefoot, swift, determined. At 23, she had never known a day of ease. Orphaned at 5, raised by a blind grandmother who sold roasted plantain under the bridge, Nina grew up hearing the word impossible more than her own name. But she never allowed poverty to define her. She worked odd jobs, washing clothes, cleaning salons, hawking sachet water, just to afford night classes. Her dream? To become a nurse. She wanted to save lives, because no one had saved her mother's when she bled to death in a dingy room during childbirth. Life was hard, but Nina never broke. Until the night her world collided with the man who would change her destiny forever. The Lagos sky turned a deep shade of ash as thunder rolled in the distance. Rain began to pour like the heavens had opened their floodgates. It wasn't the gentle kind. It was the chaotic, blinding kind that made even the fearless hesitate. Nina was used to rain. She had walked through it barefoot 1,000 times. But tonight was different. There was something in the air, something sharp and tense. She stood under the rusted roof of a roadside newspaper kiosk, hugging herself tightly, her threadbare jacket doing little to shield her from the cold. She had just closed from her evening shift at the canteen. Her feet ached, and her stomach growled from skipping lunch. Her eyes scanned the road, looking for an Okada that might brave the storm, when she noticed the car. A black Range Rover, sleek and tinted, was swerving through the flooded road, heading towards the roundabout just ahead. It slowed suddenly, too suddenly. Her instincts kicked in. Out of nowhere, 2 power bikes screeched onto the road from a side street, their engines loud and angry. Each carried 2 men dressed in black, helmets concealing their faces. Their movements were too precise, too timed. Gunmen. Panic crept up Nina's spine. The SUV tried to reverse, but it was boxed in. The bikes split, one blocked the front, the other the back. Within seconds, the car was trapped. One of the back doors opened slightly, just a crack, and a man stepped out, dragging a little boy with him. His arms were outstretched protectively, shielding the child. Nina's eyes widened. She recognized the man. Nicholas Chukwuma. The face plastered on billboards and TV ads. The billionaire tycoon, known for his intimidating presence and cold gaze. But tonight, he looked human. Vulnerable. Desperate. The gunman shouted something over the rain. One of them raised a rifle, pointed it at Nicholas. People screamed. A few ran. But Nina didn't move. She couldn't. The child was sobbing, clinging to Nicholas's leg. The man looked terrified, trying to shield his son, trying to reason with the killers. And then it happened. One of the gunmen cocked his weapon, took aim. Nina's body moved before her brain caught up. She sprinted into the street, dodging puddles, heart pounding like war drums. She heard someone yell behind her, but she didn't stop. She didn't know why she was doing it. She just knew she had to. The shot rang out. A searing pain exploded in her side. She didn't feel her body hit the ground, but she remembered the scream. The billionaire's voice shouting, "NOO." Darkness swallowed her. Rain kept falling. Sirens wailed in the distance. And as she lay in a pool of blood, one final thought echoed in her mind. At least the boy is safe. Then, silence. Light. Bright. Blinding. It pierced through Nina's eyelids like daggers. She groaned softly, her body aching as if she'd been crushed under a truck. Her throat felt like sandpaper, and her lips were dry and cracked. Where am I? She opened her eyes slowly. The ceiling above her was white, spotless and smooth, nothing like the mold-stained which she stared at every night back in the slum. A cool breeze drifted through the partially opened blinds, carrying with it the scent of antiseptic and roses. Her fingers twitched. Testing. Tubes. Bandages. She was in a hospital, a private one. Not the noisy, overcrowded government clinic she was used to. Everything here was quiet. Too quiet. And then she saw him. Standing at the edge of her bed was a man in a crisp navy blue suit. Broad shoulders. Hands folded in front of him. His eyes, cold, calculating, now softened by something else, something unfamiliar. Worry. He stepped forward as soon as he saw her stir. "You're awake," he said. His voice was deep, smooth, yet laced with emotion. She blinked. The man looked familiar. Then it hit her, Nicholas Chukwuma. The billionaire. The man she'd seen on TV. The man she'd shielded from death. What happened? Her voice cracked like old wood. "You jumped in front of a bullet," he said simply. "For me. And my son." She remembered the rain. The gunman. The pain. The child's cries. She tried to sit up, wincing. "No, don't," he said quickly, stepping forward. "You lost a lot of blood. The bullet grazed your ribs and tore through tissue. You're lucky it missed your lung." Nina looked away, her voice barely audible. "Is the boy okay?" He paused. His throat moved. "He's fine. Thanks to you." There was silence. Then, he said, "Why?" Her eyes met his. "Why did you do it? You didn't know me. You had no reason to risk your life." She didn't have an answer. Not one that made sense. She could only shrug weakly. I saw a child. A father. And I couldn't watch them die. That's all." Nicholas stared at her like she had grown wings. His face, usually so unreadable in interviews, was now flooded with something raw. Something human. He reached into his coat and pulled out a folded paper. He placed it on the bedside table gently. "That's your bill. Already paid. In full. By me." She tried to speak, but he held up his hand. "I don't owe you just money, miss." "Nina," she whispered. He nodded. "I owe you everything." There was something else in his voice. Something deeper. A guilt he wasn't voicing. A recognition that went beyond gratitude. As he turned to leave, he paused at the door and said, "Rest. You're under my protection now." The door closed behind him with a soft click. And Nina, still weak and stunned, let tears slip quietly down her cheeks. Not from pain, but from the strange, terrifying feeling that her life had just changed forever. Nina had never imagined the smell of fresh linen in the morning, or the hum of an air conditioner lulling her to sleep. She had spent her entire life waking to the stench of stagnant gutters and the screech of agberos fighting over scraps. But now, she was waking in a high-rise apartment in Ikoyi. It felt like a dream. No, a mistake. She blinked at the chandeliers, at the flat-screen TV on the wall, at the white curtains dancing gently in the breeze. Then her eyes fell on the soft cream duvet wrapped around her. She didn't even know beds could feel like clouds. "God, this can't be my life," she whispered. She rose slowly, wincing at the pain near her ribs. The wound from the bullet was healing, but her mind was still in pieces. One moment she was dodging kidnappers in Ajigunle, and the next, she was being chauffeured in a bulletproof SUV, sipping bottled water that cost more than her weekly food budget. Nicholas Chukwuma had moved her out of the slums the day after she left the hospital. She remembered the look on his face when he stepped into the tiny wooden shack she shared with 3 other girls. Walls patched with posters, ceiling covered in nylon to stop the leaks. He didn't say anything, just stared. And then he quietly turned to his personal assistant and said, "Find her a place. Somewhere that smells like safety." And just like that, she was here. But Nina wasn't the kind of girl to be blinded by luxury. She knew how fast blessings could become debts. So one evening, she gathered courage and called Nicholas. He answered after one ring. "Mr. Chukwuma, sir. Thank you for all of this. But I need to ask, why are you doing this? Really? You've paid my bills, moved me to paradise, offered me everything, and you barely even know me." There was silence on the line. Then his voice came, calm but heavy. Because you did what no one else would do. You put your life before mine, and my son's. And you didn't ask for anything in return. But still, she insisted, there must be more to it. His voice dropped lower. Nina, I have done a lot of things in this life. I've built towers on broken backs. I've made enemies. But what you did, it shook something in me. It reminded me that not everyone is like me. You saved us. And I will never forget that. Then he added, almost in a whisper, this isn't charity. It's the beginning of a redemption. From that day, Nicholas became her silent guardian. He paid for her enrollment into one of the best private nursing schools in Lagos. He sent books, paid tuition in full, even had a driver on standby to take her to classes and volunteer shifts. But he never tried to buy her affection. Never crossed the line. He treated her with a strange kind of distance, like someone precious and untouchable. And in return, Nina made him a silent promise. I will not waste this opportunity. While other girls chased fame on Instagram, Nina buried herself in textbooks. While others flaunted designer bags and filters, she walked humbly in plain shoes and scrubs. She was the poorest girl in a class full of rich kids, yet her presence intimidated them. Not because of her clothes, but because of her story. Then came graduation day. She was named Best Graduating Student, standing tall in her crisp white gown, a red sash draped across her chest. Her eyes searched the crowd, and there he was, Nicholas, in the back row, wearing a quiet smile. He didn't clap loudly. He simply nodded once. Proud. Present. That moment meant more than 1,000 words. And for Nina, it wasn't just a degree. It was a transformation. From gutter to gold. But just as she began to live in the joy of her new chapter, fate stirred the waters again. A truth was waiting. Quiet, buried, dangerous. A truth that would soon come crashing through her new life like a tidal wave. And when it did, no luxury would be able to shield her from it. It was a calm Saturday morning, the kind Nina had grown to enjoy. Tea in her hand, soft music playing, and patients walking into the private hospital with smiles instead of screams. She was now a full-time nurse at Hope Crest Medical Center, one of the most prestigious hospitals in Lagos. Her white uniform sat perfectly on her slender frame, her ID badge pinned neatly to her chest. To the world, she was Nurse Nina Chukwuka, efficient, gentle, brilliant. But to herself, she was still that girl from the slum who once bathed with rainwater and studied under candlelight. She had everything now, but she never forgot where she came from. She still volunteered in Ajigunle every Sunday. She still sent money to the widow who once fed her during starvation. But nothing could have prepared her for the woman who walked into the ER that morning. She was regal, elderly, dressed in soft champagne lace, Jill perfectly wrapped, her gold jewelry quiet but rich. Her walk was slow but dignified, even as she clutched her chest in pain. Madam, please come, Nina said, supporting her gently. Let's get you checked in. The woman's perfume was familiar, warm, elegant, expensive, and as Nina helped her onto the bed and slipped on gloves, she felt a strange stirring in her chest. There was something about her, something deeply familiar. Ma, we need to check your chest, Nina said softly. Your heartbeat is irregular. May I remove this blouse? The woman nodded, breathing heavily. Nina unfastened the buttons gently and froze. There, on the woman's ribs. Faint, but undeniable. A birthmark. Large. Flame-shaped. Brown like cocoa. Edged like a small leaf. Nina felt her stomach drop. She had seen that exact mark every day of her life. In the mirror, just beneath her own ribs. Her hands trembled. Her throat dried. Mao, I'm so sorry, but... She swallowed, trying to keep her voice steady. Have you always had this mark? The woman nodded slowly. Since birth. Why? Nina's voice cracked. Did you ever have a child? Maybe 24 years ago. The woman's eyes darted to hers. Yes, a baby girl. But she died. Nina's heart pounded like thunder. Who told you that? She asked, her voice barely a whisper. The woman hesitated. The man I was with. He told me the baby didn't survive childbirth. He paid off the midwife to keep it quiet. Said it would destroy his life if anyone knew. Nina's knees nearly gave way. She gripped the side of the bed for support. Ma, her lips trembled. Do you remember the man's name? There was a long pause. Then the woman said it. Quietly. Chukwuma. Nicholas Chukwuma. The words echoed in Nina's ears like an explosion. She stumbled back, hand over her mouth. The world began to spin. The man who had rescued her from poverty. The man who had paid her bills, clothed her, housed her, educated her. The man she took a bullet for was not a stranger. He was her father. She left the ER in a daze, ignoring the whispers of her colleagues. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She just walked. Out of the hospital. Into the Lagos heat. Her mind raced back to every silent look Nicholas gave her. The way he never let her call him sir too long. The way he looked at her, sometimes like he knew something she didn't. The guilt in his eyes when he thought she wasn't watching. He knew. He always knew. He had saved her, but he had abandoned her first. Back in her small apartment, she tore open the box under her bed, the one with her childhood memories. In it, a tiny white baby cloth with the initials NC stitched into the corner. It was the only thing her so-called grandmother had kept from the day she was born. Nicholas Chukwuma. It all made sense. The hospital. The protection. The silence. Everything. And now, the truth threatened to unravel the life she had built. One she thought was a miracle, but was really a correction for a terrible mistake made decades ago. A decision had to be made. Would she confront him? Would she walk away? Or would she dig deeper into the secret that had stolen her childhood? One thing was clear. The past wasn't done with her yet. It was only just beginning. The mansion stood like a fortress, cold, towering, majestic. Its marble walls shimmered in the late afternoon sun, but to Nina, they looked like polished lies. She hadn't called ahead. She didn't need to. She was done with silence. As the security men saw her approach, they opened the gate without question. Everyone in that house knew her, the girl who had saved the master's life. The nurse turned prodigy. The woman the billionaire watched like a hawk yet never touched. But they didn't know this Nina. They didn't know the girl who had just discovered her entire life was a web of secrets, spun by the very man she trusted most. She marched into the living room, her heart pounding, her fists clenched. Nicholas was in his study, reading, calm. He looked up when the door slammed open. Nina, he said, surprised but not alarmed. Are you okay? You look. Don't lie to me, she snapped, her voice sharp, trembling. Don't you dare lie to me anymore. Nicholas stood slowly. The air shifted. What happened? She stepped forward, eyes burning. You told me I was just a girl who saved you. A girl you decided to help. A random act of grace, right? Well, here's the thing. I'm not random, Nicholas. She threw a photograph onto his desk. A worn baby cloth. A hospital wrist tag. A childhood note written by a midwife. And then, the final blow. The woman who came into my hospital today, her name is Mrs. Grace Okonkwo. Does that ring a bell? Nicholas froze. His hands dropped to his sides. She has a birthmark, Nina whispered, stepping closer. Same place as mine. Same shape. And she told me she had a child. A girl. With you. And she was told the child had died. Nicholas's face turned pale. He didn't deny it. He just looked at her. And in that moment, she saw it all. The guilt. The fear. The recognition he had hidden for 5 long years. You knew, she choked. All this time. You knew. You knew I was your daughter. And you said nothing. Nicholas sat down slowly, his knees weak beneath the weight of her truth. I found out the day you took the bullet for me, he said quietly. Your blood was tested at the hospital. There was a match. Tears blurred her vision. So you saved me out of guilt. No, he said firmly. I saved you because I saw myself in you before I ever knew we were blood. And when I found out, I couldn't breathe. I didn't know how to tell you. I didn't know if I deserved to." His voice cracked. "I abandoned your mother. I abandoned you. I was a coward. I thought burying the truth would protect you from the shame of being my mistake." "You were my father," Nina said, voice hollow. "And I suffered. I starved. I was mocked, beaten, forgotten. And you were out here building empires while I was fighting to survive in the dirt." He stood, walked slowly around the desk, and knelt before her. "I can't erase the past," he said. "I can't change what I did. But I swear, Nina, not a day has passed since I found out that I haven't looked at you with a father's pride and shame." She stared at him, unsure whether to scream or sob. "I don't want your money," she said. "I don't want your mansion or your name. I just wanted the truth." Silence filled the room. Nicholas rose slowly, his voice soft. "And now that you have it, what do you want to do with it?" She didn't answer. Because she didn't know. Forgiveness was a mountain she hadn't decided to climb. But the truth, it was hers now. And that was a start. Weeks passed. The truth had been spilled like wine across a white tablecloth, staining everything in Nina's world. There were no more secrets between her and Nicholas, only silence. Heavy, necessary silence. And healing. Slow. Uneven. But real. Nina didn't storm out of his life. And Nicholas didn't beg to remain in hers. Instead, they gave each other space. The kind of space only two wounded hearts could understand. But something changed in both of them. For the first time in decades, Nicholas stopped chasing contracts and started chasing conversations. With her. With his son. With himself. He had spent his life building glass towers and marble estates. Yet he had failed to build the one thing that mattered, family. But now, by grace or fate, he had a second chance. And Nina? She had spent years searching for identity in books, in hard work, in survival. But now she knew who she was, not because of a man's blood, but because of the strength that blood never gave her. She had earned her place. On her own terms. One Sunday morning, under the scorching Lagos sun, a small crowd gathered in the heart of Ajigunle. A place the rich never stepped foot. A place where dreams often died quietly, unseen. But today, something was being born. A small, sky-blue building stood tall in the middle of the slum, freshly painted, clean, and proud. The banner above the door read, Mama Grace's Hope Center, free clinic and education hub. Inside were clean hospital beds, donated medical supplies, and shelves of books. At the entrance stood Nina, dressed in simple ankara and sneakers, her stethoscope hanging like a badge of honor. Beside her stood Nicholas. No suit, just a simple white native wear and humility in his eyes. He said nothing. He didn't give a speech. He let her shine. As community leaders, children, and mothers clapped and sang, Nina stepped up to the microphone and cleared her throat. "This isn't just a clinic," she began. "It's a promise. A promise to every child who's ever gone to bed hungry. To every girl who's ever been told she's not enough. To every mother who gave everything and died with nothing." She paused, voice thick with emotion. "I was one of them, but I was given a second chance. And today, I'm giving that chance back." The crowd erupted in cheers. But Nicholas simply stood still, his eyes glassy, his hands behind his back. After the ceremony, as the sun began to set and the crowd thinned, Nina walked up to him. She handed him a white envelope. "What's this?" he asked. "Papers. Legal ones. I've decided to carry your name. Not because I owe you, but because I've rewritten what it means to me." He opened it. Nina Grace Chukwuma. His throat tightened. "Thank you." She smiled. "You didn't give me my beginning, Nicholas. But maybe, you can help me shape my future." They stood side by side, watching children run through the courtyard of the clinic, laughing, playing, full of life. For the first time in years, Nicholas felt full. Not with power, not with pride, but with peace. And Nina? She no longer carried shame or questions. She had a name. She had a legacy. And she had turned her pain into purpose. Epilogue. The scar that saved 2 lives. She still had the scar, a faint mark beneath her ribs where the bullet grazed her years ago. It used to remind her of pain. Now, it reminded her of rebirth. A single act of courage had saved a billionaire. But the truth it uncovered? It had saved both of them. Forever. From gutter to grace, from rejection to royalty, Nina rose not because she knew her bloodline, but because she believed in something bigger than pain. And though the bullet left a scar on her chest, the truth it unearthed shaped a legacy that would outlive them both.